Another person that we decided we wanted to help out in any way we could was Katie. Katie was called into the mission field. We have a relationship with her dad, Dave, and he was your interim for quite a while. And a lot of you knew Katie as a tot, and have seen her growing up. And she was called into the mission field. And we decided that, you know, wouldn't it be great if we could just send her some encouragement every now and then? If we were able to send her a little bit of money or something, that would be great. And Katie wants to share with you today what God has done through her about what it looks like to love God and love your neighbor. So Katie, I'm going to turn the floor over to you and let you just tell us about what God's done in your life. You can be wherever you want.
I wasn't sure. Yeah, I have to apologize. I'm still suffering from a bit of jet lag, so if I yawn or something, I apologize. But, okay, well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Katie, as he said, and my dad is Pastor Dave Kulchar, and he was the interim here, correct?
Right.
Okay. I knew that, but I was...
You've been doing both at the same time.
Yeah, so that's, he's my father. I'm the third of 4 children, and yeah, so I grew up in a Christian home. And from a very young age, when I went on my first mission trip in 7th grade, actually, I just knew that I was called to missions, and obviously at that time I had no idea what that looked like, and that kind of thing, but as I've gotten older, God has continually confirmed that call in my life. And so at university, I went to Olivet Nazarene University down in Illinois, and I studied psychology and I studied missions as well. So I graduated last May and was praying about where to go next, and that's how I decided to go overseas with the organization Youth with a Mission, YWAM. And it's basically a missions training school that they have. They have them all over the place, but the one that I went to was focused on justice issues, and so it was based in a little town called Oxford, New Zealand. So, yeah, we were in a pretty nice location, I have to admit.
Tell them what it means to be focused on justice issues.
Okay, so there's a couple of different issues that we were looking at specifically. But one of the big ones is just the human trafficking issues that are going on right now. So we are looking at, you know, sex slavery, child prostitution, just prostitution in general. And it's amazing how widespread the problem is. And even here in Michigan, it's a huge problem. In Detroit is a big hub for that, as well as Chicago. And Kalamazoo is kind of the midpoint. So there's a lot of trafficking that goes on between those places. But as well, there's tons of trafficking that takes place all over the world. So, yeah, if you name a country, I'm sure there's trafficking going on there. Surprisingly, New Zealand doesn't have very much trafficking because it's kind of off, well, it's off the coast of Australia and it's its own little island. So there wasn't a lot going on there. But so that was one of the issues that we focused on. We also were looking at refugee work, and just kind of injustices going on there. So basically, if there's an injustice going on, that's what our school was really looking to help out with. So my team was sent to Israel. We were in Bethlehem. So depending on your knowledge of the conflict there, that's in the Palestinian territory. So the people there would call it Palestine. Israel would call it the West Bank. So I'll just call it Palestine, but I'm not saying that to offend anyone. So yeah, so we were staying in Bethlehem, and we were working with a couple of organizations, and we were primarily working with some organizations that work with people with disabilities. Because that area is primarily Muslim, people with disabilities are basically shunned from society. So we were doing a lot of work with those kind of organizations, but we're also doing a lot of work with the churches in Palestine. At one point, a couple decades back, the ratio of Christians to Muslim was 90% to 10%, and since then it has completely reversed. So there's 10% Christians in the Palestinian area and 90% Muslim. So as you can imagine, there's just a lot of discouragement among the Christian community there. And so a big part of our role, we felt like God was just calling us to encourage the people. So that was really an honor. We would just go to different homes and just talk with people and pray with them and spend time getting to hear their story. And through that, we learned a lot about the conflict there as well. And we were able to meet with some people on the Israeli side as well and just learn more about what's going on there. And it's a huge issue, so I'm not going to get too much into it, but if you have questions about it, I would love to talk to you. But yeah, so that was just a big part of our ministry, was just learning about what's going on there and the injustices that happen on both the Israeli side and on the Palestinian side, and yeah, just how people are treated. But yeah, it was really cool with YWAM. Their I don't know what to call it, their catch statement or something, is their slogan, that's the word, sorry. Their slogan is to know God and to make Him known. So the whole point of that ministry is really, we spend the first 12 weeks just really digging in and just really pressing into God and learning more about Him and all that He's doing. And so it's a lot about just getting revelation about who He is and how He loves, you know. And so that was the first phase, and then when we were in Israel, the second part of that is to make Him known. And so just to take what we learned and to really apply it. And as I was thinking and praying about what I was going to say today and just talking to Father Dave a little bit about the passage in 1 John, I really thought about how you could kind of change that slogan really easily, and you could just simply have it to love God and to love others, you know, what Jesus commanded us to do. And that's just another way of looking at it. And so that's really what we try to do, is to learn more about God's love. And one thing that really stuck out to me is one of the speakers that we had during our lecture phase was talking about John, the beloved disciple. And it's kind of a funny passage in John 20. John, who's writing this gospel, he calls himself the beloved disciple, which, if you think about it, that's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of weird to say, like, I'm the favorite, like, I'm the most loved, like, but as the speaker was talking, it really, he really gave me a lot of revelation about it, because in some ways, John had it right above everyone else, because God's love is infinite, and His love is so beyond our understanding. And so to say that He was the most loved, in some ways He was right, because we're all the most loved. God loves us so much that we are the beloved. We are the beloved disciple. And so for me, that was just a really cool revelation of God's love. And so to take that and to know that as the beloved disciple that I am, that I wanted to share that with others. And just exactly what Father Dave was talking about, you know, laying down our life for other people. And even though it wasn't always fun, even though there's times when we were tired and exhausted, and there's a lot of spiritual warfare going on there because it's just an area of conflict, we knew that God loved us and that we wanted to share that with others. And so one really cool opportunity for us is we met a Muslim family very early on in our time there. Actually, it was one of the first days that we were there, and it was totally a God incident. We were on a prayer walk, and we were walking up these stairs, and this lady was actually talking in English, but my friend thought she was talking in Arabic, but she invited us in for tea. And so finally, after the confusion, we agreed to go in, which was really not, it was unusual for us because most of us were American. We had a Canadian and a Dutch woman as well, but so she invited us in for tea, and so we went in, and her husband ended up speaking a lot more English, and so we just formed this relationship with them. And So we tried to go over to their house or have them over or just meet with them once or twice a week. And the guys in our group ended up helping tutor one of their sons in English, and so we just really formed this relationship with them. And in our last meeting with them, Nasri was the name of the father, and we were talking with him, and he stopped us and he said, you know, there's something different about you guys. And he said, you know what it is? He's like, you guys have love. And for us, that was such a testimony to what God was doing through us. And yeah, we didn't have a ton of money. We're all really young, college-age students who have raised money to go overseas, and so we couldn't necessarily shower on him like gifts or money or whatever, but we just spent time listening and investing and hearing their story, and he saw that, and he knew there was something different about us. And we don't have a story of his conversion or anything like that, but I know that a seed has been planted in his life. And so I just want to encourage you guys with that, just knowing that when we love one another, that other people notice and see that. When we love each other as family, when we live as beloved disciples of God, as knowing and being sure of what God has done in our life, that other people see that, and that's what makes the difference. So yeah, I have lots of stories and lots of experiences. I also was in Cambodia for a bit, and so I would love to speak more about that with any of you if you have time after the service, or I can give you my email. But yeah, I just want to leave you with that encouragement, as Father Dave was talking about. Like in further on in 1 John, it says in chapter 4, he's again talking about God's love, and he says, "This is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another." And so my prayer for you guys is that you really know God's love, so that you can't help but tell other people about what he's done in your life. Amen. Thank you for letting me do it.
Well, Katie's been called out of the mission field for, I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yes, sir, for Katie, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Katie, when you were over in Palestine, what was the interaction? In other words, you had the Jewish state on one hand, the Palestinian state on the other, both of them having their own religious beliefs and whatnot. Where in that continuum, from both extremes, did the Christian community fall?
Well, it kind of depended on which Christian community. Unfortunately, there is a bit of segregation because I don't know how, there's like a wall that separates the Palestinian territories from Israel, and so most Israelis are not allowed access to the Palestinian territories, and the Palestinians aren't allowed access to the Israeli side of things. So there's kind of a bit of a segregation even amongst the church, simply because there's a wall and you can't travel back and forth. Unfortunately, too, there is some hostility among the Palestinian Christians towards the Israeli Christians, and
Really?
yeah, the Messianic Jews, I guess most of them are Messianic Jews. So, but there's also relationships too. There's one organization that we worked with called Musalaha, and which means reconciliation in both Arabic and in Hebrew, which is really cool. So they are just working on just building relationships among the churches and among, the Arab Christians and the Messianic Jews as well. So, yeah, so I guess the Christians are kind of, in a sense, the peacemakers, because they're not Jewish, obviously, and they're not they're not Arab. I mean, they are Arab, but they're not Muslim.
They consider themselves Christians first, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're Arabic or Jewish, you consider yourself of that nationality first before your nationality is your religion.
Right.
For Christians, it doesn't matter what nationality you are.
Certainly.
I'm going to let you guys talk more
Yeah.
over coffee and fellowship.